I'm going to say good morning again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Both. Good to see you. So I want to start out with just a little story. About this time last year, there was this event that was, I consider it a miracle. There was a call in Spanish River, wherever that is, that a car had overturned, and so police and firemen responded, and they were led to discover a child who had survived for 14 hours in a submerged car. And the 4 police officers who helped rescue the baby from the overturned car in the Utah River claimed that they heard unexplained voices calling, "Help me, help me." And the mom, who was Lynn Jennifer Grossbeck, she was 25, and she went off the road, and she died immediately, according to the police and the firemen. And then they heard this voice, not a little voice, it was a voice, saying, "Help me, help me." And they struggled because the river was frozen and cold, and this little child had survived for 14 hours upside down in this freezy weather, and no food, no water for that long period of time. And they would not have been so anxious to turn the car back over and save her if they hadn't heard this adult voice calling, "Help me, help me." And that is unexplained to them. They considered it a miracle. And so I consider it a miracle also. First, that they heard a voice that was unexplained, and secondly, that they were able to rescue this little child who had been there for 14 hours. And the police officer said that it was a miracle, and he said she has important things to do. So it's been what, I don't know, maybe a month or two since I've cried.
A couple weeks maybe.
Okay, I just wanted to share that with you because it touched me. Today what I'm talking about is the spiritual system is perfect. Because the spiritual system is perfect, then worldly conditions may also become perfect. Ernest Holmes, who was our founder, said, "Faith knows that the universe is a spiritual system, that man is part of this system. It knows that man's environment is also part of this system. Because the system is perfect, the condition may become perfect and would be perfect if we were to know it to be so." Faith knows that the life of man is God, the birthless and the deathless reality of all being. So the deal is that it's up to us to know. It's up to us to know. And to know that prayer invariably works without question. It is our doubt, our reservation, and our lack of faith that causes prayer not to work. It works inevitably. And Emma Curtis Hopkins talks about how the reason that Jesus was able to perform miracles was because of his true belief and faith in the power of his word. And when we learn how to have that same faith and that same conviction, then also we will be able to and be in a position to create miracles. So I think that what happens to us is that we become afraid of our own power. I think that we don't really trust ourselves to deal and function with that kind of power. So, as religious scientists, we do see the world with an understanding of wholeness. As religious scientists, we believe from this point of view, there's only one life. That life is perfect and whole. All creation, including us, is perfect, a perfect idea in the mind of God. First, which means that we are always perfect and whole. Wholeness is our truth. God's will is for more life. God's will is for more life. So as long as we are holding a consciousness of expansive wholeness, then we are in alignment with the divine. Our word is powerful. As long as we are in alignment with wholeness and expansiveness. Ernest Holmes says, how do we know what the will of God is? We do not know other than this. The will of God cannot be death. Why? Because if we assume God to be the principle of life, the principle of life cannot produce death without destroying itself. So we know in physics and science that nothing is ever extinguished. Nothing is ever extinguished. It changes, but it is never extinguished. Ernest continues to say, the will of life has only to be life. The will of that which is infinite can never be finite. The will of that which is infinite can never be finite. Nothing is ever extinguished in the wholeness of the universe. Everything then should tend to expansion and multiplication in the divine plan. That is the will of God. Always expanding, always growing, always getting better and better. And despite media coverage otherwise, things are getting better and better in every way. Things are expanding in the whole universal essence of goodness. Ernest continued by quoting Thomas Troward, who many of us studied recently, who said, the will of God has to be beauty, truth, and harmony, as this is the true relationship of the whole to the parts and the parts to the whole. Therefore, we should interpret the will of God to be everything that expresses life without hurt. Everything that expresses life without hurt. This seems to be fair, logical, sane, and intelligent criterion. So as long as my prayer does not include a belief to cause harm to anyone else, and as long as I know my word to be true, to know and have faith and trust in the power of my word, the power of my prayer, then I can expect good to unfold. Now, a lot of times the good unfolding can seem and appear rather convoluted. And that's where we get into trouble, I think, is that we focus on the convolution of the expansion and the growth and the way that the divine answers prayers. We have an expectation of how it should be, how it should look, the way that we want it to turn out. And by golly, that's going to be the way it is. You all know the story of the fellow on the roof in the flood, praying to God to please save him, save him, save him. A boat came along. Come on down here, they said. No, I'm waiting for God to save me. Again and again and again. He refused because he had a vision of the way God was going to save him. Well, the poor old fellow drowned. Because God had given him answers to his prayers, and he had such a closed mind about the way the prayers should be answered that he missed his opportunity to get off the roof. And how many of us have prayers with an expectation of the way that it's going to unfold, the way that it's going to look? And we narrow our focus to such an extreme that we miss the will of God that is unfolding for us. Ernest continues, anything that will enable us to express greater life, greater happiness, greater power, so long as it does not harm anyone, must be the will of God for us. As much life as one can conceive will become the part of his experience. So, do you go to the ocean with a spoon? Or do you go to the ocean with a bucket? Or do you go to the ocean with a hose and siphon off all that you can accept? We're limiting ourselves. The will of life has only to be life and more life. There is only one life in which we are all living. This life is whole, perfect, and complete. Being a part of this one life, we must already be whole as well. The true relationship of the whole to the parts and the parts to the whole is the duplication of that which happens on the macroscopic and the microscopic level. Our own lives, never separated or apart, operating in the finite with the full power of life behind us. So at this time, in this place, in this country, in this essence, I can trust that despite anything that I believe otherwise, any misperceptions that I may have, that the good for this country is unfolding in perfection. And I stand in that, and I know that to be true. I stop awfulizing and worrying about the outcome of elections, and I just know the truth, that God is in charge. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's a pretty good prayer. I can stop being anxious. I can turn away from those things that I read and those things that I hear that I can get so distressed about. I can turn within and know that all is well. It is only for me to know that. It is only for me to know the truth. all is well. And that's true for all things, for abundance, for health, for relationships. As long as I stand in the knowing that my word is powerful, my thoughts are creative, and all is well. As I turn aside from outward appearances and turn within to inward appearances. We have at our disposal a power that seems to be limitless. Infinite possibilities exist and are open to us because the system is perfect. The condition may become perfect and would be perfect if we were known to be so. If we know it to be, then it is. We just have to know it is perfect system and release any and all thoughts that the system could be flawed in any way. We just have to know it is a perfect system and release any and all thoughts that the system would be flawed in any way. The whole of spirit is potentially focused in our individualized consciousness. Let me say that again. The whole of spirit is potentially focused in our individual consciousness. Does that scare you? It's a lot of power, isn't it? So I think we get scared. We shuttle around and look for the yes buts. Just imagine what your life would look like if your prayers were answered. That's a lot of power. It's a lot of responsibility. Just knowing that we're part of the whole and it's all perfect. The whole of spirit is potentially focused in our individual consciousness. How wonderful to know that the whole of spirit is focused on us at all times, realizing the highest and best possibility for us. As we open our minds to greater ideas for ourselves and for our world, greater realities become possible. Greater realities become possible. This is a time of magnificent confluence of divine ideas. Greater and more amazing things can unfold for us individually and for our country and for the world. We just need to remember that all things are in divine right order. We can't be distracted. We can't allow ourselves to become frightened or scared. It's all unfolding in perfection. As we see ourselves and our world from an understanding and appreciation of wholeness, our worldview shifts, and we see how perfectly everything works together for the greater good of all. Instead of seeing ourselves as limited or not enough, we focus our spiritual truth, which is we are already complete, we're already perfect, we're already whole. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong. unfolding perfectly. If we come from a place of what we may be feeling in reaction to what's going on around us, we find it very difficult to get beyond our limitations, and hence we stay where we are. In that place, even though we may make progress, although it can never be compared to the progress we could make if we were focused on our infinite self, the power within us, the place where we are one with the whole of life. What could that be like for us? What could that be like for us? Demonstrating more from the God qualities we wish to experience. Last week I asked you to think of the God quality that you wanted to demonstrate. How'd that go for you? You forgot, didn't you? Let's try it again this week. Demonstrating more from the God qualities that we wish to experience. Opening the doors up wide might give us quite an expansive view of what's possible and give us solutions to go beyond anything we could have imagined before. What God quality do you want to experience and express this week? Love? Faith and trust and harmony? Knowing that you are it? You are the one? You're the chosen one? Love, peace, joy, abundance, dynamic good health, vigor? What God quality do you want to express this week? Let's challenge ourselves to demonstrate unconditionally, without conditions, without limitations mixed in, and see where that goes. We talk about the idea that prayer is not really about words. It is more of a feeling. And when you settle into that expansive, joyful feeling, the universe responds to you from that place. We're limited by what we're willing to accept. We're limited by our own beliefs of limitations, by our own beliefs that, that couldn't happen. It's not for you to figure out how it's going to happen. It's only for you to feel it happening. Whatever it is that you are calling to yourself as highest good. So I invite you this week to see yourself as whole and quite enough. To see the wholeness of the universe, of which we're all part. And watch how you feel. How things look and how differently things unfold and transpire from that place of expansive wholeness. The feeling of joy, the feeling of faith and trust and knowing that all is well. It's really important for you and me, for all of us, to stay positive, to stay loving, and to know that God is in the heavens and all is right with the world. And because you are God, heaven is right where you are, and all is right with your life. And to know that on the deepest, most visceral level has enormous impact on your life, on all of those that are around you and surround you. You're the sparkle of the divine. And I love you, each one. Namaste. So I'd invite Kate and Christine to join me. I invite you to just take a nice deep breath and settle into that place that you know that you can't communicate with the divine. That place and that space. Maybe it's in your heart. And so just open that place and allow yourself to know the truth of who you are, the truth that you are whole, you're perfect, and you're complete. It can be no other way. Settle into that place in your heart and expand your expectations of good. Expand your expectation of joy, of abundance, of peace, of love and laughter. Feel it expanding. Feel your godness. Connect with it. Savor it. All is right with the world. It cannot be otherwise. Just permit yourself to relax into that knowing. Permit yourself to expand into all of the goodness that has ever been and ever will be, and own that for yourself. Causing harm to no one. All is well. And I give thanks for that. I step out of the way and I let Spirit do the work of good. And I say, and thank you, Mother, Father, God. And so it is.
And so it is.